I'm James Brown. I grew up in Milburn in Tishomingo, Oklahoma. Been here at Regency Park now. We came in late 2020, and happy to be here and do this. Growing up, I wasn't the easiest kid to raise, so I went to go live with my grandparents, and my grandfather was probably the biggest influence in my life. He's where I get my work ethic. He's where I get my integrity. I was not on my way to being that person if it wasn't for my grandfather. My mom tried to keep me in church. Again, I wasn't the easiest kid to raise, so I went when I was made to go. As a teenager, invitation was given. I walked down the aisle and said words, but at the time they were just words. After high school, me and Nita were married right after high school. God really didn't have a place in our life at the time. We didn't know where we were at in our life at the time, and quit going to church. We used to go to Bullard Chapel Baptist there at Tishomingo, but we quit going to church, and I ended up joining the Army. And while I was in the Army, I learned a lot. Kind of made me the man I am. But God sure didn't have a place in my life at that time either. There's been times over the years that you get that little punch in the gut that God's like, hey, I'm trying to talk to you, and I got really good at ignoring it and putting it away. And then years later, when I got out of the Army, I applied for the police department where I work at, and I've been there ever since, and got a little over 3 years left till I retire. When our son was graduating high school in 2012, we didn't know where we were going. We didn't know what we would do. We've been parents most of our all of our adult lives, and we knew something was missing, something wasn't there. My cousin, who passed away a few years later, he just always had a love in his life. He was always happy. He was just joyous, and he had told me that about his salvation, and at the time I didn't want to hear it. 2012, we were invited to church and by a friend of Nita's, and we reluctantly went and kept going, and it wasn't really an invitation, but we knew something was missing, and we asked Christ into our lives, and we were saved that day sitting in the back of a little church in Norman. My lovely wife can attest to this, that since being saved, that biggest change in my daily life is I was not the most pleasant, easy to get along with, friendly person. I cussed like a sailor. If you wanted to fight, I was always down for a good fight. I was just never a friendly, nice person that I am around everybody. A radical change in who I was. Pastor Keith and I discuss music from time to time. Although I still like heavy, hard music, there's a lot of stuff that there's just no way that I would listen to now, just because I know what it's about. Avian was a young man we met through motorcycle community. Just absolutely a heart for Christ. We would show up at a motorcycle event, the most unchristian event you could ever imagine. He would end up talking to somebody on a sport bike who might have been smoking weed at the time, or 3 sheets in the wind drunk at the time. And at some point during that conversation that would always start with motorcycles, Avian was absolutely the best of Christ is going to get brought up at some point. Whether they want to or not, Christ is going to get brought up at some point. He just had such a heart. Absolutely became our son. His real parents, who are the most godly, wonderful people he ever met, they refer to us as Avian's other parents. And so when he passed away, I did not act godly. I cursed God. I blamed myself and God. Didn't understand it. Hated it. Said some of the most horrible things to God. And people can say what they want. I know what I heard. One night, I know God spoke to me and said, "I thought you said you trusted me." And that's a shot in the gut to take. Not going to say I don't still struggle with it. Still struggle with it all the time. The devil puts thoughts in your head, and the thought will come across from time to time that that's on you, and still struggle with that a lot. Nobody's going to beat God, so I'll pray a lot, get off by myself, and me and God will have discussions on it, and I'm always able to pull through it, which my wife will tell you the same thing. If it wasn't for that, I don't know where I'd have been through that if it wasn't for my salvation. Today, with the way God works through my life, is like I said before, I'm definitely not the same person I was before. I was not a nice person. I've always talked a lot, but I mean, now I can carry on a conversation and somebody not walk away just being totally disgusted by something I said, and I'm not mean to people, if that makes sense. And I ain't wanted to fight nobody in a long time. I feel like God works every day in my life, especially when the devil starts sneaking in, putting those thoughts in my head, about things that happened in the past. I know that's all gone. When I asked Christ to be in my life, that was gone. Sometimes I have to be reminded of that, and sometimes it's a little painful for me to jerk myself back into, all right, sit down, talk to God, and get reminded of that. But if it wasn't for God in my life every day, I'm just not sure where I'd be. My favorite Bible verse is Philippians 4:13, and I've always been into powerlifting, love weightlifting, love going to the gym. It's like I should probably have my mail forwarded to the gym. I used to, when I first became a Christian, how you're like strict, and everything's got to be strict. Well, this gym I went to, which was definitely not a Christian place, it was a very secular place, and it had, I can do all things through Him who strengthens me, on the wall. And I used to be like, when I first got saved, I thought, I was almost offended that is not what that is talking about. That is not talking about coming in here and throwing weights around. But then one day I watched a kid who, I'd talked to this kid before, and I don't believe he was saved, but I watched him look up that verse on his phone. And then it was like, you know what, that doesn't matter. Even though whoever painted that on the wall probably has no idea what that verse actually means, having it on the wall there did something. That caused a kid who probably wouldn't have in the first place to look up that Bible verse and to read God's Word. On my signature block on my email, that's what pops up. It's just always been my verse, and it's one of those that I think about when things are bothering me. If you ain't never said yes to Christ, you need to say yes to Christ. I promise you, I wouldn't be the same person I am today if it wasn't for that. Just come to somebody. Come to Pastor Keith, Pastor Chris. Come to me. I'll be happy to talk to you. We're going to talk about motorcycles first, but there's no waiting. Today's the time.